Arguably, the most important job of the Congress is to pass legislation, the bills enacted by Congress to create the laws by which society is governed. But how exactly does this process work? In this video, we're going to explore the legislative process used in the U.S. Congress. That is, we're going to explain how a bill becomes a law. The ideas behind bills can originate from a variety of sources. Members of Congress may make promises while campaigning for office, or may be pressured by their constituents to take action. Lobbyists may offer information or support the election campaign of members of Congress in the hopes of getting them to propose or support bills favorable to their goals. Increasingly, the president or the executive branch may call for legislative action on the part of Congress. But regardless of the source of the idea behind proposed legislation, only a member of Congress can introduce a bill to the Congress. Congressional action generally takes one of four forms: simple resolutions, concurrent resolutions, joint resolutions, or bills. Simple resolutions deal with the rules, operation, or opinion of the House or the Senate. They are adopted by a single chamber of Congress and are considered binding only on the body that adopts it. Concurrent resolutions are similar to simple resolutions, except that they apply to both the chambers of Congress. Neither simple nor concurrent resolutions are considered legislation, since neither is presented to the president for approval. Rather, they're used merely to express facts, principles, opinions, or purposes of the Congress as a whole. Joint resolutions are more like bills. Both joint resolutions and bills, once passed by both houses of Congress and approved by the president, become law. However, they're traditionally used for different purposes. Bills are the most common form of legislation and are used to propose new laws or amend existing ones. They cover a broad range of subjects, from budget appropriations to policy changes. Joint resolutions, on the other hand, are generally used for more narrow set purposes. Specifically, they're used to propose amendments to the U.S. Constitution, approve some expenditures, make formal expressions of opinion, or make certain specific decisions, such as declaring war. But bills are the most common way legislation is introduced into Congress. Bills can be divided into two broad categories: public and private bills. Public bills propose laws of general interest and apply to the entire nation or large groups of people. They cover broad policy areas like taxation, healthcare, defense, education, labor, or the environment. Private bills, on the other hand, are intended to affect only specific individuals or entities. They're much less common and are usually considered when an individual or group faces a unique situation that cannot be adequately addressed by existing laws. For example, a bill that grants citizenship to a specific person who cannot obtain it through the normal process, or a bill that provides relief to a person or company by lifting a specific legal obligation or penalty, would be private bills. Due to their specific nature, private bills often receive less attention in the broader legislative process, but are subject to intense scrutiny to ensure they are justified and fair. But due to congressional dysfunction, the number of private bills has declined dramatically over time, and instead administrative agencies have increasingly dealt with these kinds of issues. Bills can also be designated as permanent or temporary. As the name suggests, permanent bills create laws that remain in effect indefinitely or until they're specifically amended or repealed by subsequent legislation. Such laws typically address ongoing issues or establish long-term policies and frameworks and become part of the permanent legal code. Temporary bills, by contrast, create laws that are intended to last only for a specific period. These laws automatically expire or sunset at a predetermined date unless they are extended by further legislative action. This approach allows Congress to review and assess the effectiveness of the laws before deciding whether to extend, amend, or allow it to expire. Bills may originate in either the House of Representatives or the Senate, with one notable exception. Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution provides that all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but that the Senate may propose or concur with amendments. By tradition, general appropriation bills also originate in the House of Representatives. Any member of Congress can introduce a bill to the Congress, and the member or members who introduce a bill are its sponsors. Other members of the chamber can add their names as co-sponsors after the bill is introduced. A bill originating in the House of Representatives is designated as HR, followed by the number that it retains throughout all of its parliamentary stages. The letters signify House of Representatives, not, as sometimes is incorrectly assumed, House Resolution. A Senate bill is designated by S, followed by its number. The term companion bill is used to describe a bill introduced into one house of Congress that is similar or identical to a bill introduced in the other house of Congress. After a bill is introduced into Congress and assigned a bill number, it's referred to committee by the Speaker of the House or the President pro tempore of the Senate, or more often by the House or Senate parliamentarian. This decision is based largely on the subject matter of the bill. For instance, a bill related to healthcare would typically be sent to the Health Committee, while a defense-related bill would go to the Armed Services Committee. A bill may sometimes be referred to multiple committees, especially if it covers issues that fall under the jurisdiction of more than one committee. This tends to happen more often in the House than in the Senate. Referral to multiple committees can slow down the legislative process, as each committee may need to act on the bill before it can be moved forward. Once referred to committee, the real work begins. Bills are placed on the committee calendar, which outlines the meetings and hearings of the committee and its subcommittees. In the House, the Speaker may set a time limit on the work of the committee, requiring them to complete their work by a specific date. Committee chairs also wield considerable power. They can effectively kill a bill by refusing to act on it, though in the House, a bill can be forced out of committee and back to the whole chamber through a discharge petition signed by a majority of the House members. In general, bills are referred to subcommittees by their committee chair, again based on the general subject matter of the bill. Each committee has a number of specialized subcommittees, which can change from Congress to Congress. For example, the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology has 5 subcommittees: Energy, Environment, Investigations and Oversight, Research and Technology, and Space and Aeronautics, while the House Foreign Affairs Committee has 7 subcommittees, generally based around specific geographic regions of the world. Subcommittees normally request information from relevant government agencies and will often hold hearings to invite testimony from witnesses, stakeholders, and experts on the bill. They may also provide a public forum for input on the bill. Once a subcommittee has completed its work, the committee reports out to the full committee for further action. Reporting a bill out to the full committee requires a majority vote of the subcommittee. If a subcommittee votes not to report the bill to the full committee, the bill dies in subcommittee. But if the subcommittee reports the bill out, the full committee begins the markup process. Markup is essentially the process whereby the full committee reviews, debates, and makes changes or amendments to the bill. Most of the time, the committee conducts open markups, where the public and the media can observe the process, but sometimes the sessions may be closed for sensitive matters. The markup process begins when the committee chair schedules the markup session, providing the committee members with notice of the bills to be considered and typically copies of the bill text and any proposed amendments. Once the markup session formally begins, the committee chair and the ranking member, the senior committee member from the minority party, offer opening statements. After that, other committee members may also make statements providing context about their position on the bill. Next, the bill is read aloud, normally section by section. After each section is read, members have the opportunity to propose and discuss amendments, with each proposed amendment subject to debate. Amendments can make minor changes to the bill, or they can involve substantial rewrites of large portions of the bill. They can even replace the entire text of the bill, which is often referred to as a substitute amendment. Each proposed amendment is debated by the committee members. This debate allows for clarification, discussion of the amendment's merits, and potential further modifications. After debate, the committee votes on each amendment, with proposed amendments normally requiring a majority vote of the committee to pass. Once all amendments have been considered, the committee votes on whether to report the bill out of committee. The bill may be reported as originally proposed, with adopted amendments, or as completely substituted versions. If the bill is approved, the committee staff prepares a report describing the purpose and scope of the bill, including the committee's reasoning and any dissenting views. This process is normally referred to as ordering the bill to be reported. Committee members who oppose the bill sometimes write dissenting opinions in the report. The reported bill, along with the committee report, is submitted to the full House or Senate for consideration. If substantial amendments are made during markup, the committee can order the introduction of a clean bill, which will include the proposed amendments. The new bill will have a new number and will be sent to the floor while the old bill is discarded. The chamber must approve, change, or reject all of the committee amendments before conducting a final passage vote. Once reported back to the full chamber, the bill is placed on the calendar for consideration. Each chamber has some specific rules governing how debate occurs. In the House, most bills go to the Rules Committee before reaching the floor. That committee adopts the rules which govern the procedures under which the bill will be considered by the full House. A closed rule set limits the times and debate on the floor and forbids the introduction of amendments from the House floor. An open rule permits the amendments from the floor. These rules can have a major impact on whether or not the bill passes and in what form. But the Rules Committee can be bypassed in several ways. Members can move for the rules to be suspended, a process that requires a 2/3 majority vote to proceed. Alternatively, if a bill has been stuck in committee for 30 legislative days, a petition signed by a majority of the House can force the bill to the floor, bypassing the Rules Committee and coming to the House floor for consideration under a closed rule set. Finally, the House can use a calendar Wednesday procedure under which any committee chair can bring a bill that's already been reported out of committee to the House floor for consideration. However, as the power in the House of Representatives has increasingly been concentrated in the hands of the Speaker, these legislative procedures have been used less frequently than in the past. In the Senate, the filibuster procedure influences how bills are considered. In essence, the filibuster arises from the tradition in the Senate that there are no speaking limits and any senator can speak as long as they like on a bill. Ending debate, a motion referred to as invoking closure, requires the approval of 60 senators. In essence, this means that a small group of senators can prevent final vote on proposed legislation by refusing to grant closure. In either case, once a floor debate has concluded, a vote is normally scheduled on the bill. If the bill passes one chamber, it becomes an act. If the measure has not yet been considered by the other chamber of Congress, it then is referred to that other chamber for consideration, where it will go through similar committee floor actions. Because bills generally work their way through both chambers of Congress separately, it's necessary after each chamber has passed their respective versions of the bill to convene a conference, a bicameral committee generally comprised of equal numbers of senators and representatives to reconcile differences between the two versions of the bill. Members of the conference committee are normally senior members of the standing committees that originally considered the bill. The conference committee meets and attempts to develop a compromise bill, often involving trade-offs between the two versions in order to reach agreement acceptable to both chambers. If the conference committee cannot reach agreement, the bill dies in committee. But if they do reach agreement, a conference report, along with a unified version of the bill, is sent back to each chamber for approval. This report cannot be amended by the respective chambers and must either be approved or rejected as is. If the report is rejected by either chamber, the bill dies, but if it passes both chambers, the act is sent to the president for consideration. The president can sign the bill, in which case it becomes law once signed. The president can also veto the bill. In that case, the bill is sent back to Congress with a note explaining the reason for the veto. The Congress can then attempt to override the veto, a procedural maneuver requiring a 2/3 majority of each chamber. If Congress secures this vote, the bill becomes law despite the president's veto. If they cannot, the veto holds and the bill is defeated. Finally, the president can also decline to take action on the bill. The effect of inaction depends on whether or not Congress is still in session at the end of the 10-day period. If Congress is still in session, the bill becomes law without the president's signature. If Congress has adjourned, the legislation is defeated. This is usually described as a pocket veto. Once a bill becomes law, it's assigned a PL number and published into the U.S. statutes at large, the official record of all laws and resolutions enacted during a session of Congress. It's also codified into the United States Code if it's a permanent law, and the bureaucracy gets to work enacting the provisions of the law as necessary. Individuals, as well as non-governmental organizations, lobbyists, and others, have several key points at which they can influence the legislative process. Before legislation is introduced, individuals can contact their representatives to express their views or suggest ideas for legislation, or participate in public forums like town hall meetings and listening sessions where legislators often gather input from constituents. At the committee and subcommittee phase, individuals can provide written or oral testimony during committee hearings, directly contact members of relevant committees to express opinions on the bills being considered, or participate in grassroots campaigns that raise public awareness and attempt to influence committee members. During floor debates, continued contact with legislators can influence their support for or opposition to bills as they're debated on the floor. Public events and social media campaigns are often used to show support or opposition to the legislation or to draw attention and pressure elected representatives. And letters, phone calls, and emails ahead of key votes are often used to try to influence the votes by those elected representatives. Finally, it's worth noting that the vast majority of bills introduced in the United States Congress do not ever become law. While the numbers vary from session to session, in recent Congresses, about 6,000 bills are introduced into the House of Representatives, and around 4,000 are introduced into the Senate. A significant percentage of these bills are symbolic, meant for political messaging, addressing niche issues, or are reintroduced from previous sessions. The majority of these bills do not pass the introduction stage. Of those that do, most die at the committee stage. There are various reasons for this, including lack of priority, limited committee resources, opposition from committee members, or conflicts with other legislative agendas. And even those bills that do get reported out of committee may die on the floor, particularly in the Senate, where individual senators have greater power to block action through the filibuster. The requirement that bills make it through both chambers of Congress also presents an obstacle, especially when different parties control each chamber. And finally, not all bills approved by Congress are signed into law by the president. On average, around 4 to 7% of the bills introduced into Congress each year actually make it through the legislative process and are passed into law. But that's it for now. Please leave any questions you have in the comments section below, and thanks for watching. Bye.